Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Now, really quickly before the video starts, I just wanted to say quickly that with the public release of Journaly and my full-time job and everything else, which has been amazing, but insanely busy. So I'm still getting on top of everything and ramping back up my release schedule. So please be patient with me just a little bit longer. However, I did want to also say that my weekly language diary on Patreon, I've now started doing that as a video format. So anybody on my Patreon page gets an extra video per week. So that's every weekend, and it's like an informal diary just talking about what's happening with my languages. And I also, in the last entry, answered some questions around my plans for this year. But just know there is some absolutely epic content coming this year. I just need a little bit more time to finalize my plans and get everything underway. But with that being said, let's jump into today's video. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year. I know we had a live stream just after the turn of the year, but still, this is like the first official regular video of the year. So yeah, let me know how your languages are going this year so far. And I would love to know what everybody's goals are. How are you feeling going into 2021 with your languages? Now, today we're going to be talking about how learning languages, but also just languages in themselves, have really helped me over the years to deal with something that I think all of us experience at some point or another. But, you know, I think a surprising number of people out there deal with loneliness on an incredibly regular basis. And for some of us, it's just a constant part of life and something we have to learn to deal with, you know? And certainly in the year of 2021, which is, of course, for most of us bleeding into this year as well, loneliness was probably at an all-time high. And so I just wanted to share an experience I had over the Christmas and New Year's break that just passed, because it was a very intense period for me. Now, many of you might know, if you've watched my channel for a long time, that I've been alone and by myself sort of for the majority of my adult life, and even going quite far back beyond that as well. And so I've spent many birthdays, Thanksgivings when I'm here in the US, Christmases, New Year's, you know, by myself for like a decade. That's basically the majority of my experience. But this last Christmas and New Year's period was really intense, and it was a pretty dramatic emotional roller coaster, even though I still stayed pretty positive most of the time. And there were some really big highlights, such as finally launching Journaly on December 31st. That was really special and powerful, but it was very lonely. However, this was, of course, a wonderful opportunity for languages to sort of save the day once again. And they really did, right? And so as I was going through that experience, I just was thinking, wow, this is really powerful. And I hope that other people who like learning languages have this tool in their own, you know, life toolbox of dealing with things like loneliness and maybe even depression. Of course, loneliness can manifest in a whole bunch of ways. So what happened to me was, again, it hit me pretty suddenly. And all of a sudden, I just started reflecting a lot on, you know, these last 3 years living in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and thinking about all the experiences I've had with people and how so many of those were really quite negative, and just, you know, like reflecting on how much time I've just ended up spending by myself, right? And then, you know, going to reflecting further back and all the other years. And anyway, so it really put me in a bit of a rough spot. However, I have been getting back into Spanish recently. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching the video I did about little language projects. And I did that video in Spanish because I was explaining, and with subtitles, of course, you know, explaining the method I have of little language projects. And again, you can see that video. It was such a huge success, and it really ignited. Ignition is the best word I have for this. It was a spark that ignited into this fiery, burning love that I have for the Spanish language that I really not experienced for a while. And I also did a video about experiencing flow in foreign languages. That was very recently, and I talked a lot about recapping my Spanish language project in that video. So I would love for you to watch both of those videos. So we got one on little language projects, one on flow. So what happened in the Christmas break, as I was planning to do German and maybe even get back to Mandarin Chinese, for some reason, I needed a companion, and I needed to find that in myself, right? With the tools that I have, because I was here in my apartment by myself. And languages, they have always come through for me as really companions. Like, that's the best word I can think of. They really do feel like companions. And in this case, it was Spanish, right? So even though my plan was, okay, I finished my Spanish language project, done and dusted, awesome, let's get back to German now, and again, perhaps jump back into Mandarin Chinese. I needed a language that I could truly experience flow in, to be honest. I needed a language that I could really interact with certain parts of the world efficiently and effectively in. And so that requires a higher level than I have, certainly in Mandarin Chinese, and I think potentially even in German, right? And so that's a key point here that I've discovered while thinking about this topic, is that this is why I think it's really helpful to have intrinsic motivations for learning a language. Even if you begin learning a language in a very utilitarian way, very extrinsically motivated, maybe you just want to get a job and learning Spanish, for example, is just a tool for that. But I find that type of motivation is very brittle, right? And it's especially vulnerable to changes in your life. So for example, maybe that job opportunity goes away, right? Or maybe you've changed your mind. All of a sudden, all the time you spent learning Spanish can just, go in the dustbin. Who says dustbin? Bloody hell. It can go in the bin, the trash can. Whereas I think as you develop these really strong intrinsic reasons and motivations for learning a language, as you fall in love with certain aspects of either the language itself or what that language represents to you, right? So in my case, over the Christmas break, I fell in love with the documentary series Street Food Latin America, which was available on Netflix, right? And so I fell in love with this activity of watching these beautiful, gorgeous stories of different people in different Latin American countries. They were all in Spanish. There was one episode in Portuguese as well, but I focused on the Spanish ones because of this particular thing. And it was just amazing getting exposed to all these different accents and dialects, all the images that were captured of these different places like Buenos Aires in Argentina, or Oaxaca in Mexico, or Lima in Peru. I could go on and on. It was just gorgeous. And so interacting with those parts of the world was what Spanish allowed me to do. But here's the thing, I could have watched those documentary episodes with English subtitles. It wouldn't have been the same. It is unquestionably, it's my love for language learning and my love for the Spanish language that really, really makes this special. But it's just to say that it's more than that. It's that Spanish is my vehicle for truly engaging with and interacting with and consuming all of those stories from around the world. So I think that it's important to have intrinsic motivations when learning a language if you hope to develop this sort of companionship with a language. But also I think it's important that you develop a pretty good level in a language if you want to experience this as well. Now, I do think that just learning a language, and it could be a beginner language you have, it's fun, right? But for me, what truly rises to the level of when languages start to feel like companions and they really start to genuinely make me feel less alone, when they start to fill that space in my heart, it's when I can do things like watch a documentary and just be moved to my core, by a beautifully told story. Also in a book, right? I have so many novels here in French that I read, and oh my God, it's so powerful. And the same thing goes for, just practicing speaking, listening to podcasts. Oh my God, listening to interviews. So over the Christmas break, I listened to a ton of podcast episodes in Spanish. I listened to a bunch of other interviews and conversations. I read articles. I even grabbed this magazine, which is my favorite magazine. It's called Drift. It's all about coffee, but this particular volume is all about Mexico City. And I'll just flip through. You can see, it is full of gorgeous photographs, wonderfully written articles. And even though this is in English, because I was in that headspace, even that somehow, it still connected. It still felt like it was part of my journey through the Christmas and New Year's break with Spanish at my side, right? And so this video is not super structured. I know I haven't really given any concrete takeaways here. Well, I suppose I have. The two takeaways I have are that I think if you can develop and enhance over time sort of intrinsic reasons for learning a language, let yourself fall in love with whatever aspect of learning a language catches your eye and creates a spark. And I think that as you experiment with different things, like trying to learn with podcasts, trying to learn with graded readers, or trying to dive into novels, or watching movies and films, TV shows, whatever it is, if you let yourself find that spark and fall in love with that particular aspect of learning a language, I think that not only is it more resilient in terms of motivation and carrying you through to becoming fluent in a language, whatever your goal might be, but I think it plays a role in that language and the things the language enables you to do and the things you associate with the language over time. Those become like a companion that I think helps you get through those lonely parts of life and gives you hope, right? You start to imagine yourself traveling to Buenos Aires and ordering a choripan or whatever else it might be, right? You start to have these dreams and hopes that are associated with language. And the second takeaway is that I do think that this is another reason that it's really, really worth it to take your languages to high levels. Not everybody wants to do that. Again, I'll never tell you what you have to do, certainly not tell you what you shouldn't do or, absolutely you shouldn't do. But I will always advocate for learning languages to high levels just because of the profound benefits that I've had in my life from doing that and that I've seen so many other people experience in their lives as well. And with that, I will leave you with one more sip of coffee, and I would really, really love to hear all of your thoughts and experiences with languages, either becoming almost like companions of yours or just helping you through times of loneliness or other times of difficulty in your lives. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.